Good afternoon. This is Lauren Sonnenberg with LifeCore, and welcome to this afternoon's edition of Mind Body Talk on chronic pain. And today I promise to talk about the 6 areas to address using EFT tapping for chronic pain. So first, a helpful start would be to let those of you who don't know about EFT tapping, what that is, of course, and then those 6 areas that we use it with, I will go over today. So, EFT stands for the Emotional Freedom Techniques. And a frequent way to call it is tapping. People often call it tapping because we are actually tapping at various acupressure points on the body. So, if you've heard of acupuncture, then you'll have an idea about acupressure. So acupuncture, they use needles at various points along the body to help free up energies that become blocked that lead to all kinds of emotional and physical challenges. So with acupressure, we stimulate the same points. Now with EFT, we're not going all over the body. There are a few points that we use with EFT. And we also use those in combination with specific wording that target the areas that we're talking about today. So it becomes a very powerful tool with chronic pain and illness when used correctly. It's a very powerful tool, even if you're just talking about emotional challenges without any physical symptoms. But EFT has probably been, as a psychotherapist, it's been the tool that really has transformed my work and my practice over the years. And it's something that I really can't do without because it is so powerful. So with that, I could get into showing you the various points that we tap on with EFT. That's probably best for another day, the actual how-to. And I'm not going to ever get into really giving you scripts on it. I would much rather create a program for you to show you how to plug your particular specific situations and issues into that, as opposed to here's a blanket how to do it, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't for you, because it won't work unless it's specific to what's going on for you. It might work a little bit, but you're not here to just have it work a little bit. You want it to really work so you can feel better. That's the goal. So with EFT, there are 6 areas, like I told you, that I focus on when somebody comes to me and they have chronic pain. So the first area would be the specific physical symptoms that are coming up for them. So for example, if they have pain, I might have them describe it a little bit. Okay, is it, what color would you see it? Is it shooting, stabbing? So maybe they come up with, I have this red shooting, stabbing pain that's in my low back, for example. Okay, now we can use that specific descriptor of the pain and get in and do the tapping on that. Okay, great. And like I said, there's a protocol for how to do that. We're not getting into that here today, but that's the first area. Just the pain, describing the pain. It's a good place to start for somebody who's never done EFT before. And so that's part 1. Part 2, what are your emotions around the pain? We want to target this area. This is a big area. Are you frustrated? Are you angry? Are you feeling stuck? There are so many. Are you feeling hopeless and helpless, like at your wit's end? What else do I do? That is obviously a major emotion or a major set of emotions that are going to be weighing on you. And so we want to clear those out and begin to get those moving as well as we're working on the whole person, the mind, body, spirit of a person. And EFT is really great for working on the mind and body collectively. It's all happening at the same time. So we have those. We have the physical and the emotional experience of the pain. Okay. So if you happen to have seen on YouTube my Move Beyond Chronic Pain Part 1, you would have heard me talk about this next part, which is what are the present issues and events going on for a person? Well, of course, the pain, sure. And that's not minimal in many cases. But what else is going on? What are the challenges? Are there challenges at work? Are there challenges within the family? Are there challenges with issues with significant others, money? The list goes on. So those issues, you may or may not know if they are connected to the pain, and they may or may not be connected with the pain, but we want to make sure we're looking at those, because when we're being thorough with helping a person get relief from chronic pain, we have to make sure we're looking at all the angles. It's almost like being a detective and doing that really deep work to help a person make sure they're shining a light on all the areas that could be impacting their well-being. So now when we're dealing with present issues and events, and we're using EFT with those, almost inevitably, not every time, but almost inevitably, something from the past, either the recent past or the not so recent past, bubbles up. And we definitely want to use EFT and target our approaches to those specific events. The more specific we are with EFT, the better. So now I'm seeing that we have a person watching. I don't know who it is right now. I can't see. I see a little thumbs up. Thanks for the thumbs up. So if you have questions, it does say that comments will appear here. So feel free to ask. And I will try to slow down for a second and comment on those, and or at least at the end, make sure I give some feedback. So now, any questions so far? If not, we're going to keep going. Okay. Now, we've covered 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have physical and emotional experiences of the pain, present issues and events, past issues and events that may relate to the pain. Now, before I go past that, let's look at that for example. So we talked about in last week's Mind-Body Talk on chronic pain, we talked about a common conflict that plays a role in pain, chronic pain of the musculoskeletal type, is a self-devaluation conflict, feeling not good enough or put down in some way, either by yourself or by somebody else, or a combination of those. And that's perpetuated either by itself as a standalone, or also because of the pain itself. So this becomes, this is definitely something we want to look at. But so let's look at self-devaluation. Let's say that's coming up presently in your life. Is there a theme of that in your life going back to childhood or teenagehood or early adulthood? So these themes will come up almost inevitably. And so when we're working on the present day person, we're also working on the younger selves within the person, so to speak, oftentimes. So that's why this work is it's comprehensive, because when somebody's presenting, say, with chronic pain, that's the symptom. That's the tip of the iceberg. There's all this underlying body of emotions, so to speak, that is really screaming to be addressed, healed, nurtured. And that's the beauty of the EFT, because it starts to do that work. And it's almost as if the pain is coming along to tell us, hey, there are some unresolved issues from the past. Let's work on those. And that can be daunting. But for many people, it's also like, yeah, you know what, I know I need to address this issue or these issues. It's been in the back of my mind for a long time. And maybe I've done a little bit of work on it, but I'm ready to go in there and really heal that so I can be free of that baggage from the past and move forward. So anything from the past, it's not like you forget about it when you do EFT, but you are able to subtract the trauma out of it, subtract the negative beliefs out of it, so you can move forward with the emotional freedom, hence the emotional freedom techniques, and then also the physical relief that you get from that, which is why EFT is so wonderful. It just really is a great tool. So if you have any questions so far, feel free to chime in. If you've ever done EFT before, feel free to give a thumbs up so we know, or even you can throw a thumbs up there if you're thinking, oh, you know what, I would like to try EFT. So a question that came up before we get to part 5 and 6 is, can this relate to chronic arthritis? Absolutely. Absolutely. I am speaking to the people with chronic arthritis as well as other issues. Absolutely. So there's, every time you get into a chronic issue like arthritis, you are going to be having some obviously present physical experiences of the pain, most times feeling emotionally charged about it too, from frustrated to really bothered by it, saddened, at a loss, especially when it starts to impact your functioning within the world and your ability to work or to be a parent or a grandparent or whatever it is. Just maybe you can't even do the things that were fun for you before, and that's very powerful too. So yes, really it can be used with, EFT can be used with pretty much all pain types. And so great question. So the fifth area that we're going to use EFT with are what I call compounding fears and beliefs about pain, disease, and healing. So people who have stumbled across the LifeCore page are probably on some level attuned to the mind-body perspective of dealing or looking at chronic pain or illness, and maybe not, but I find that people who have had some, and maybe they've dipped a toe into some holistic well-being, maybe they take, some supplements, or maybe they looked at some meditation or some deep breathing, and they start to get the sense the mind and body are connected. And so if you have that, if you're at that, if you're standing on the horizon from that point of view and perspective and looking in, it's probably an easier step to go and see the deeper science behind the mind and body connection. You're probably a little bit more ready to go and try something like EFT. But I've also had people who are like, I've never tried anything holistic before, and this is a little daunting to me, but I want to try it anyway. And then, of course, there's the, I'm never going there. And that's fine too. But so all of this ties back to the compounding fears and beliefs about pain, disease, and healing. So if somebody says to me, Lauren, do whatever you can do to help me, I will. If they have a big blockage in terms of belief, but like, maybe they're at a 2 out of 10, like, I really don't believe I can get better. We're going to use EFT for that. And we're probably actually going to start with that before any of those other points, if it's that intense, because that blockage needs to be moved really before we get progress in those other areas. So there's nothing right or wrong. You can come say, hey, Lauren, I want to try this EFT, and be like, I really don't believe it's going to work at all. And that's fine, because we meet people where they're at on their healing journey. And it's just important that we address the emotional blockages that may be occurring for a person that are going to get in the way of their healing before we get into those other topics I already talked about. So that might be confusing if you're just hearing it for the first time. So feel free to ask questions. Those compounding fears and beliefs might be like, okay, well, my family isn't buying this, so I'm kind of like on the fence about it. And that's normal. That's totally normal when you're trying something new. And so that's okay. But it might be something we would tap on too using the EFT. So now the last area. I'm not saying there aren't any other areas besides these 6 main ones, but these 6 main ones pretty much sum up the work that we do. So this last one, if you've never talked about mind-body healing at all, this one might be the one. It's not going to be the very first thing in a conversation I have with anybody, and it's not the first thing we would ever tap on. It would rarely be, unless somebody's done a lot of EFT work before they've come to me, the area known as protective fears that keep us holding on to our pain, illness, or other issues. That does not mean that a single person says, oh yeah, I want this. Please keep bringing it on. Of course not. Nobody wants to feel bad and in pain. But in the subconscious, and sometimes you're slightly aware of it, but sometimes it's almost unconscious until we bring it to the surface, there are protective things that our mind wants to do. And I'll get more into this in it could be its own segment. But what are the downsides to getting rid of a pain or an illness? What fears do you have to face if you magically started feeling better tomorrow? What problems would that bring up? That's a big ball of wax right there. And I would say if people have done all the work on steps 1 through 5, I won't call them steps 1 through 5 because we don't do them in that order per se, but those areas 1 through 5, the 6th one might be the one that really needs to shift before you're able to really see the big changes. Not always. Oftentimes not. You'll see a lot of things shifting, but it's an area, and the reason I bring it up, because it's going to scare a lot of people off, and I understand that, but it is such a powerful and poignant area that cannot be swept under the rug. And people don't want to go there at first, but when they do, they say, oh, wow, Lauren, I'm really surprised at how that was operating in my life. And we'll get more into detail in that in another segment, because it really deserves a lot of attention. But EFT is powerful in that regard too. So today we talked about the 6 areas to address using EFT tapping. And again, it's called tapping because you're tapping at various acupressure points while we're saying phrases specific to these areas, very specific. And we do that so that we can clear out the negative emotions that are trapped within the body, so we can have a release of that. And then with the release of the negative emotions, we have release and relief from symptoms. And that's it in a nutshell. So the 6 areas: the physical and emotional experience of pain, that's 1 and 2. The 3rd area is the present issues and events that we're dealing with in life that may or may not be related to the pain, but we have to be thorough and look at those. They might oftentimes link to something in the past, like a chronic theme that's happened in life. And even if you didn't have chronic pain as a younger person, that eventually enough of things got swept up under the rug of that type of conflict, and then poof, one day you finally have pain. And then it becomes, instead of acute pain, over the course of time, it compounds and then it becomes more chronic. Then we have the compounding fears and beliefs, which was area 5, about pain, disease, and healing. And then the last one, the protective fears that lurk, that keep us subconsciously and unconsciously holding on to the pain even though we don't want to. So I thank you all for joining me here today. And even if you see the replay of this, put your questions in, ask your questions. I'd love to connect with you. And if you think of, if something I said in this discussion today triggered a topic for you that you want to hear more about in other talks going forward, by all means, let me know about those too. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye-bye.